shot at a lot of business aspects this morning. I know that is going to be coming from Simba Kiage, also with me this morning. Good morning, Simba. It's good to see you as always. Our happy, is it Thursday morning to you?
So happy Thursday morning indeed. Thank you very much for choosing Look Up TV as your partner station this morning. As you get ready then to push on with your day, a lot of changes happening across the board. We've seen our president, William Ruto, in his maiden speech at the UNGA, that is UN General Assembly. Now, a lot of issues that he touched on, some of them that are very pertinent to what is going on in the country. Now, drought. We've spoken about it. We've highlighted it. We do know that 10 counties have already been put in the 10 list, in the red list, sorry. And out of that, 4 million Kenyans are actually facing acute starvation. And that's one area that he addressed, saying that indeed conversations about climate justice and climate change need now to come to the fore, because indeed, if the sub-Saharan Africa economies are going to have any conversation in terms of determining where global GDP is going to go through, it's by agriculture. And if climate then is on agreement, then we will not really have so much talk about it. Also spoke about how donor states across the world should also give reprieve to economies in Africa that are rebuilding from the effects of climate change and the COVID-19 pandemic. Really a lot of conversations that are also going to take center stage on Look Up Business today. But then again, as you look around, the economy is not doing that good. That is an area that we will talk about.
All right, Simba, even as you mentioned, the climate change and the drought that we're experiencing in the country, we'll be looking at our tweets and trends where the COP27 is taking center stage as far as climatic changes are concerned. We do realize that Kenya has been quite, vocal as far as climate is concerned. The outgoing president, or former president, Uhuru Kenyatta, in COP26 made a number of remarks there as far as deforestation and reforestation are concerned. But also talking of COVID-19, we're looking at how a story here is just resurfacing as far as COVID-19 funds are concerned, the billions lost, and investigators have named several Kenyans as suspects in a scheme where COVID-19 mitigation measures were subverted to defraud the United States government of a whopping 30 billion shillings between mid-2020 and February this year. Now, further, we're seeing that the more than 47 suspects acquired prime beachfront homes in Kenya, the United States, and Turkey, as well as pricey jewelry and high-end apartments in Nairobi and Dubai. I want to just summarize on that. We'll get more details later on. A large part of the loot was also surged on top of a range of vehicles, including, of course, the Porsches and, very expensive, brands of Ford. So you look at this irony as far as fighting the pandemic, which really was detrimental to the economy, including the Kenya's economy, some of the things we haven't even recovered from, and they were looking at these billions of money being lost even during Uhuru's regime. By then, Deputy President was William Ruto, is now President of the Republic of Kenya today. So such stories are already re-emerging, even as we're looking at drought, starvation, and high cost of living. But where will this end is a question that we'll be looking at in the current affairs.
A lot of really events happening around now.
Yes.
I mean, you will never think that scandals will stop being associated to Kenya. By the way, even talking about that, I was reading another story about the nurse in the UK who disappeared with hospital funds. I mean, across the board. Is that a thing that we can associate Kenyans with? Maybe you can talk to us at Look Up TV across all your social media platforms, but much more to come. And we're getting into that and looking at exactly what the dailies are talking about shortly. But then, Ankey, there's another conversation as well. Now, you are just about to start paying 2,000 shillings in terms of your NSSF contributions, by the way, before the court stopped it and said, well, that will go back to public participation before indeed then you pass it as law.
As should.
But then 2,000 from 200?
I think that's too high.
Yeah?
I believe that. I personally would say, as a Kenyan, as a citizen, take off this journalist, a title from me, 2,000 shillings for a common mwananchi who's already struggling to put food on the table. Already, just making the unga price 230 was killing them. If you deduct, pardon me, 2,000, I mean, what are they even earning? Let's start with what the average Kenyan is earning. Where would you get the 2,000 from?
But they say, you see, what the president was saying, that if you increase your savings now, then yes, that is in NSSF.
Yes.
Once you retire, then you would have your future well secured in the sense of paying more now, and then when you really need this money to help you, to elevate you, then you actually do have it in the pocket.
Oh, okay, it makes sense. It does make sense. But Simba, I probably think we're going to come back, discuss this even on what is trending. I like how President William Ruto, looks at the future. I like how he's visionary, and he always likes to advise Kenyans on the future. Even when he dealt with the subsidy, it was about, let's handle this now so that the entire quote-unquote disease is dealt with in the next, a few months. So it's a good vision, but how realistic, for the common mwananchi is this? I continue to ask myself that question. And I can't wait for that conversation, Simba, that you'll be having on Look Up Business today, 11 to 12 p.m. on should NSSF be 2,000 shillings? And I can't wait for people's feedback. We're live on Facebook right now at Look Up TV. But of course, just to bring you up to speed, between 10 and 11 a.m., we are going to focus on the youth, social media, and drug abuse. Looks like a topic that has been exhausted, but it will never be exhausted enough as long as these things that are fast growing are affecting the younger generation even more by the day. We take a short breather. We come back with what exactly is making headlines on the newspapers today.
Well, welcome back. You are still watching the Morning Drift. Let's cross over and see what it is that you're going to meet in your dailies today. And Ankey, I do have the Daily Nation. By the way, you can join this conversation live at Look Up TV across all your social media platforms. Just to sort of contribute to some of the subjects that we do have for here this morning. Now, Ankey, that story that you didn't mention, and that's exactly what the Daily Nation is headlining. Besides Ruto freezing jobs and tender payments, I'll be telling you about that story. Now, this is what they're saying. America on the trail of stolen billions that was stashed in Kenya. In fact, they're putting that sum at 30 billion.
Yes.
That was the suspects who defrauded the U.S. government of more than 30 billion that embarked on a global shopping spree. Where the loot went, it went into cars. Majority of those guys who are in the COVID-19 it was on a kids feeding program, by the way, during the COVID-19. Well, they used that money on holidays. They bought real estate. And then again, if you go all the way to where they are, the U.S. government has tracked that money all the way to South Sea. Some of the billions were used to buy several properties in the South Sea neighborhood of the city, potentially tilting market prices. Because 30 billion is a lot of money. I mean, if you take it to South Sea, you're buying a lot of apartments in that area, isn't it, Ankey?
Yes,
so,
it is.
Interesting, really. They're also talking about how Ruto... Okay, read that story, by the way, on the Daily Nation. They've covered it in pages 6 and 7, and there's some Kenyans who've been implicated in that defrauding scheme now.
About
and we're going to wait.
47.
Yes, and we're going to wait to see what the U.S. government is going to do to some of those Kenyans. Now, again, Ruto has frozen jobs and a tender payment. Now, here's the thing, Ankey, not so much. This is what the order is saying. Now, the presidential order has frozen appointments by CSs to boards of state corporations or state agencies and redeployments on any new appointments in any ranks within ministries and state departments. Further, ministries, state departments, and state agencies are restricted from effecting payments of more than 50 million shillings without Treasury's approval, a directive intended to stop last-minute spending sprees by outgoing officials. So, Ankey, this is Ruto saying, you guys are not supposed to spend. Wait for my government. When my government comes in, the CSs are the ones who are going to spend.
And Simba, I do not know why I'm relating this with, do you know the number of, the amount of funds that is being questioned towards the end of Uhuru's regime?
Yes.
That was on yesterday's daily. So quite something to look at as far as the action being taken by President William Ruto is concerned. I'm also looking at the change of guard at county levels. Of course, we have been experiencing the changes of guard, and new speakers are taking over at the counties. You want to read more on that particular change on the standard pages 8 and 9. Besides that, we're also seeing at the front page right here of the standard, like you said, Ruto locks in Uhuru ministers. So pretty much Ruto is working. And we're seeing no leaving yet. President William Ruto's administration slams the brakes on foreign travels for all exiting Uhuru cabinet secretaries and commits them to active official duty until their replacements are sworn in, while slashing their powers. Now, if you see the front page, we're seeing faces of Fred Matiang'i, we're looking at Joseph Kinyua, we have Peter Munya here, Joe Musheru, just familiar names within, Uhuru's regimes and ministers. As far as that is concerned, we have Mutahi Kagwe, who was very vocal during the COVID-19 pandemic, of course, based on the position he's holding. Najib Balala, Kiriako Tobiko, and at the center of this, the head of public service, Joseph Kinyua, said, it is therefore reiterated that the tenure of a cabinet secretary or principal secretary currently in office will only lapse on appointment and swearing in of a successor. Well, pretty much you don't have to leave the office vacant. It just makes sense to me that you need to hand over. We have to have accountability. What were you doing? What are we handing over? Are there hitches? This is pretty much in order, according to me. So that is actually on the standard. More of that story on page 4. Among other things, we're looking at William Ruto with the United States Secretary General Antonio at the UN headquarters in the New York, US. That is one of the things in the status diary that we have been following as far as President Ruto's first official duty, or rather visits, are concerned. He was, of course, in the UK for the burial, and then he met Joe Biden, discussed other things, and now the UN meeting here with the COP27 taking center stage. Just some of the few things highlighted on the standard. Simba, if you allow me, there's a very interesting write-up here in the standard, and allow me to pick it up as far as, KPA is concerned, the port. And we're seeing here that the business at port still sluggish as players push for clear directives. Now, quite something there in the new regime. We're seeing various stakeholders call on KPA and KRA to explain new measures after Ruto's order. And now shippers cancel cautions that that many importers may finally prefer SGR. Now, Simba, you're very good with business. If this shift happens,
yes,
and shippers decide we're going to be using the SGR, you do know that the movement of the ports might have had a bit of an effect. There was a bit of a contention, disagreement here and there. There's a back and push on this one. And now we're seeing they might wish to pretty much shift to the SGR. What are we looking at?
Conflict with China as well. In fact, they did look into that because, Ankey, the SGR has never been a profitable venture in the country.
Yes.
And you could see Uhuru Kenyatta's government really trying to force majority of the traders in the country to use SGR. That's why they moved some functions of the inland container depot to Naivasha, so that now you could have then those goods moved from Mombasa through SGR all the way to Naivasha, isn't it? But now, the fact that you're saying it's not going to be there, then majority of these traders will say, okay, so no SGR. So SGR, by the way, is going to be turning in volumes in terms of losses. And you and I are the ones, again, are going to come back and say, where is this money going to come from? Because Kenya has to repay the SGR monies. So 50-50. When you look at it, yes, other people are happy. But when it comes to our commitments to SGR as a country, a lot of question marks. And I'm telling you, a lot of developments are going to come from that. You will see.
My goodness, we have so much to deal with as a country, quite a long, long way to go. But Simba, let's talk about the media. And apparently we are on the page 10, special report, quite interesting, saying what journalists in other nations can learn from Kenyan media. Well,
what did we do?
Kenyan journalists covered a tight election, Simba. Here's what colleagues can learn from them. Yeah, I like it. As Italy, Brazil, and Nigeria go through divisive campaigns, researchers analyze how coverage in Kenya went. And that reminds me of the different tellings. Anyway, among other things, we really, I don't know, I cannot speak for us. We did different, you know, debates. Were they debates? Were they interviews? I'm going to keep it to myself for now, but I know you have your own opinion as well.
Yeah.
We take a short breather. Let us know from Kenyans what they think of the Kenyan media coverage of for the elections. We are live on Facebook. What are your thoughts? Yeah, do we deserve this? What journalists in other nations can learn from Kenyan media? I like it. I like it, Simba. All right, welcome back. This is the Morning Drift. Thank you very much for tuning in. It's exactly 9:17 a.m. Besides everything else going on the newspapers, there's a lot going on as well on what's trending. So we're going to cruise over to social media. Our main focus then will be on Twitter as our main source of information this morning. And Simba, if you allow me to just kickstart this, it's a very memorable day in this country. It was not one of those we would celebrate. But Kenyans today mark 9 years since #Westgate attack. And as we remember our lost brothers and sisters, we are seeing a lot of things going on Twitter, tweets, memories and remembrance. Pretty much it's one of those days, 22nd of September, the year 2022 today has then, you know, just, I don't know how to call this, but it has made us remember where we have come from, even as far as, you know, growing in terms of security and tightening security, among other things. Yeah. Simba, I do not know what you'd have to say about this, but before I read those particular tweets with #Say No to Terrorism, it's that one of those dark days. Pretty much, no one saw that coming.
And it's been 9 years. Wow.
Yes, moves fast.
It felt like yesterday. I mean, for me, I would say majority of us, some of us, yeah, I mean, lost our friends, by the way, in those attacks. So it gets closer to you. If you do know somebody from 9 years ago then who did lose a life at Westgate and was very close to you, was a close associate, a family, a friend, that's how this attack really becomes something that is close to you. But that aside, I mean, it shows exactly what terrorism can do to a country. And if you do remember, Ankey, after that, Kenya started getting a lot of red alerts from majority of nations that will come into the country, especially tourism. So it really get affected. We even had to come out to try and really clean our name and say that this is just a one-off in this country, that yes, we've experienced it, but it never gets to happen that much. And even the conversations on our fight against Al-Shabaab during those times. I mean, we got into conversations of, do we need to draw our forces from Somalia then, indeed, so that we could have a softer stance with the Al-Shabaab militia. We're using that as a chance then to get back at us. I mean, conversation around that area, and they will never stop. Yes. They really put us on the map for being an insecure nation. But then, other than that, you will talk about what it did to a lot of Kenyans who lost their friends, who lost their families. By then, some businesses just never went back to Westgate again after that particular attack. So you look at it from that perspective as well. Yeah.
And of course, just to make a very keen correction, that it wasn't on the 22nd, but 21st of September. However, this particular, because of the memories yesterday, we have this trend continuing into today. So the attack happened on the 21st of September, the year 2013. Now, according to information, if you can remember closely when the headlines just hit, we saw that about, 4 masked gunmen attacked the Westgate shopping mall and upscale in Nairobi, Kenya. And there were conflicting reports about how many attackers really were in there, how many died. But if you go into the records, we're looking at about 71 deaths or even more that were actually, witnessed there at the Westgate. So really, we keep remembering this date 21 all the way to 24th of September, the year 2013. This was a very dark time. About over 100 people, say 175 thereabout, were injured in this particular, Westgate terrorist attack. But the perpetrators were clearly, and of course, confirmed they took ownership, the Al-Shabaab. And I like how Simba put it. It really put Kenya at a dilemma there. Do we withdraw them? It was actually a talking contention within the government whether to withdraw our forces or not. But we do stand with families of the victims and those who actually lost their loved ones in these memories of the Westgate shooting at the Westgate shopping mall.
Yes.
But of course, I'll read this particular tweet by Dennis Itumbi. I believe that is correct. Real quick, on as far as these Westgate memories are concerned, says, "Dear Kenyans, today, which of course yesterday, marks 9 years since hashtag Westgate attack. As we remember our lost brothers and sisters, let's also salute heroes who defined gunshots to save lives. Garissa Senator remains my hero," says hashtag say no to terrorism, hashtag we are stronger, hashtag International Peace Day, Dennis Itumbi at security. Of course, all that just a tweet that we picked out from that particular Westgate trend. All right, Simba.
Interesting, really. Let me just add on to one on that, and say this. There's reading this from my last born mom, that is at Africa Mamke, was saying that today we celebrate how our heroes at Westgate incident did show unity. We remember the heroes for being united and strong as well. It's one of those days that we remember just to say it should never happen again, you know?
Yes.
That's how I say, we remember, so that we celebrate it. No, we don't celebrate it. We remember it. Because then it is one of those red marks that you may want to wipe out of the Kenyan history. Anyway, a lot of conversations as well around...
And just before we actually cross over to other trends, Simba, I'm sorry to interject, Davis Chichir, at Davis Chichir, also tweeting, saying, 9 years after the Westgate attack by Al-Shabaab terrorists, our thoughts are with the families, and the Kenya Kwanza government is committed to ensure all Kenyans are protected from the brunt of terrorism.
That's it.
Yes.
That's exactly what it is right now.
So,
anyway,
yes.
So we look at other trends as well that are going on in the country. By the way, we never get to, and I keep on saying this, Ankey, that we never really get to cover majority of the stories the way they should be covered. Because right now, there are 10 counties in this country where stories of climate change, and they keep on coming now. Next year, at a time like this, again, we'll be talking about drought. Next year, but one, at a time like this, we're talking about drought as well and the effects of climate change. Because right now, if you read what the Interior the ministry is been talking about the drought situation in the country, you will see that 10 counties, 4 million plus Kenyans are facing acute starvation because of the effects of drought and climate change. All right, President William Ruto actually did mention it yesterday at his maiden speech at the United Nations General Assembly. And this is what he said, that these are conversations that indeed we need to fight together. For us to achieve climate justice, it's not going to be a conversation about a particular country. It's going to be a conversation that we're going to have together as African nations. And it was supported by Guterres. But that's what I know.
Antonio?
Ankey, what did Guterres say?
And of course, just to pick that particular tweet, that of course, by that, let me just see, he says, how much more climate havoc do we have to witness? He says we have 45 days to hashtag COP27.
Yes.
And today at UNGA, I urge world leaders to, of course, have the courage to back the decisive hashtag climate action the world needs on mitigation, finance, adaptation, and loss and damage. Pretty much. That's it.
That's it.
And I think that's really in order. These are our main struggles. Mitigation. Everybody's trying to put in, policies, but therefore I actually think there is a disconnect, and there's need to actually really put the force more powerful in terms of implementation of some of these things that we're trying to enact, finance, the budget allocation, among other things, and even adaptation. There's so much loss and damage going on, but no one really wants to be accountable for it. Let's see how that goes in COP27. To wrap up, Simba.
All right, just quickly, Ankey, let's clear like this. Ebola. It's a threat now.
Yeah, that's where I was headed at, Simba. I was headed to Ebola.
Let's clear
I was
like
just
that.
wrapping up the climate change. But let's take it from you.
Moka, so Ebola kills a 24-year-old man in Uganda.
Yes.
And majority of Kenyans did attend the Nyege Nyege festival in Uganda. And all of a sudden, we are worried, well, is it going to be an outbreak in the East African region. What do guys think about it?
Well, of course, I'm just going to pick one here.
Yeah.
It's just pretty much, you know, the Ebola outbreak. And if I just pick that trending right now, I'm not getting much of those tweets yet. But what we have, however, is that Kenyans are now tweeting their fears in case the outbreak does happen in Kenya. But my tablet seems to be throwing that away for now. However, that is the current situation in Kenya with the fears of could we be going into that particular outbreak as well. That's also, if you check in that relation, you'll also see that East Africa will be trending for many other reasons among the Ebola outbreak. I think that's it, Simba. It's pretty much what I'm getting here.
All right, let's take a short break right here on the Morning Drift. Once we come back, I'll be taking you all the way to the newsroom so we can see some of the headlines that you are starting your day with.
Hi there, my name is George Washuri. I am so happy to see you, and today I am here to enumerate, to explain how we package our land investment. We have 5 levels of our property, and we classify these levels as 1 star, 2 stars, 3 star, 4 star, and 5 star. This is what we mean, that if you buy a property that is 1 star with Optiven, one of the things that is evident, the property is cheaper, is below $500,000. And this particular property is basically bare land. We only do subdivision, put the beacons, and then produce titles. The second level, we call it 2 star. This is prime land, whereby we grade the roads, we put a marking fence, do the beacons, and produce titles. The third level, we call it 3 stars. This 3 star is value added plots. We do the malam, we do the water, we do the mesh fence, and there's a caretaker on site. The fourth level is 4 star. 4 star is ready to build development. We do very nice maram roads, we plant the trees, we put the water tower, we also put a caretaker on site, and finally, the 5 star. The 5 star is premier, it's the top level, and this one, we do cable roads, we do water management through underground culverts, we do underground power, we do fountain for water, we do beautiful and nice permanent gates, we do perimeter wall, and also do install the CCTV, and the whole property is manned by uniformed security. Some of these properties, these 5-star properties, we do a clubhouse and also construct swimming pool. Thank you once more for trusting Optiven. We value you. We are at Absa Plaza, 14th floor and 15th floor. God bless you.
This is an ordinary day in Hilary's life.
Raised in a broken home as a firstborn son to falling victim of a failed marriage, and yet strives daily just to ensure he survives, since society provides no excuse for a man.
At around 18 April, I was called by someone who represented himself to me as a husband to her. And the guy told me that she has died on 18th April.
Welcome back. You're still watching the Morning Drift. You can join us live at Lookup TV across all your social media platforms. Let's cross over to the newsroom and see some of the headlines that you are waking up to this morning. Now, as the government seeks to fulfill the promise of providing subsidized fertilizer, farmers in Kisii County are a happy lot after receiving the 10,000 bags of fertilizer to enhance production. Ian Ketani with the details.
Just a week after President William Ruto promised to deliver on subsidized fertilizer during his inauguration, the commodity has been availed to farmers in Kisii as the county received at least 10,000 bags of fertilizer. Most farmers who had planted without fertilizer made their way into the warehouse, saying that the government had given them the opportunity to equalize on their produce.
Ninashukuru serikali yetu kwa kutuletea mbolea. Mimi niliposikia last evening ya kwamba mbolea imefika, imenifanya leo tu nikamkia na nimepata mbolea.
Msimu wa upanzi ulikuwa uanze mwezi wa 8. Hadi sasa wengi hawajapanda. Na wale ambao wamepanda bila mbolea. Sasa hii mbolea ambayo tumeipata leo inaweza ikatusaidia at least kufanya mashamba tuweze kupata chakula.
Dorice Megutu, a farmer in the county, urged the government to provide them with CAN for efficient farming.
Serikali imetuonea huruma, imetuletea mbolea kwa bei iliyo chini. Tumekuwa tukinunua mbolea kwa shilingi 6,500 kwa kila bag. Lakini sasa hivi siku hii ya leo nina furaha kuwatangazia wakulima wenzangu ya kwamba kuna mbolea katika huu mji wetu wa Kisii. Ningeomba serikali itusaidie kwa kutuletea mbolea ya CAN ambayo itatusaidia kama wakulima ili tukipalilia haya mahindi yetu tuweze kunyunyuzia mbolea ya CAN iweze ikatusaidia kuzalisha mahindi mingi.
However, in Nandi County, the subsidized fertilizer is yet to be available, with most farmers exuding confidence that the government will avail the product in due time.
Tumengoja mbolea, tumekuja kwa Agrovet, mbolea bado ni bei ghali sana. Mbolea sasa ni 6,500. Tumengoja mbolea serikali, bado tunangoja. NCPB, Mosoriot, bado tuna matumaini kwamba mbolea yenyewe itafika most probably before the end of next week as we were promised by our president. So we are very, very hopeful and we pray that utapata mbolea ndio tuweze kupanda mimea zetu.
Na jambo ambalo naomba Wakenya tuwe naye ni subira tu, kwa sababu tulikuwa tumeahidiwa hii wiki na hii wiki haijakamilika, kwa hivyo tuwe na subira.
The farmers indicated that the fertilizers available are still expensive, hoping that the prices will fall even further in the next few months.
Ule rais wetu ambaye ni Asla Ruto amesema kwamba mbolea itafika by 3,500 by ile 50 kg, but tunaimani by next year January itakuwa 2,500 na kila mkulima atakuwa na fursa ya kununua mbolea kwa bei iliyo kwa maduka.
Ian Ketani, Look Up TV.
9 years ago, 4 armed terrorists armed with grenades and rifles stormed the Westgate Mall in western Nairobi, leaving at least 68 people dead. Those who survived live to tell stories of the fateful encounter. Our reporter Edwin John Mukora sat down with Ben Mulwa, one of the survivors, as he speaks about how the experience changed his life.
On Saturday, 21st September 2013, gunshots rented the air at the Westgate Mall in Westlands in Nairobi. 4 terrorists attacked the store, shooting indiscriminately at sellers and customers. A 3-day long that left at least 67 people dead and 170 others with injuries, leaving scars that remain a reminder of the trauma. On that sunny afternoon, Ben Mulwa had gone for lunch with his friend at the mall, and though he cheated death, he was left with a bullet wound on his foot. 9 years later, Mulwa is now working with the Kilifi County government, and he says the events of that day changed his perspective of life. A lesson he learned to be grateful for each day and never take life for granted.
Hadi siku ya leo nashukuru Mungu, manake hakuna chochote cha maana ama kitu special ambacho naweza sema nilikuwa nimefanya ndio Mungu akanusuru maisha yangu na wengine wakapoteza maisha yao pale. ni jambo liliniuma sana kuona watoto wadogo ambao walipigwa risasi pale na wakarushiwa hizo guruneti na hawakuwa na hatia yoyote. Na tangu siku hiyo vile kwa kimombo tunasema I don't take anything for granted. I don't. And ninaamini ya kwamba kuna sababu ambao Mungu aliyaokoa maisha yangu. Na ndipo huwa nachukulia kila siku kwa kushukuru na kuamini ya kwamba kama kuna jambo lolote ama kama kuna kazi yote ambayo Mungu amenuia niweze kufanya katika maisha, azidi kuniongoza.
Mulwa also says that although there was no coordination among the security apparatus on the day of the attack, currently strong strategies have been put in place to prevent such an incident from occurring again, with security enhanced in different public areas, including shopping areas and entertainment areas.
Ikawa pia kuna maafisa wametumwa kutoka vitengo tofauti. Sasa NIS wametuma watu wao, wamevaa nguo civilian, wako na mabunduki. Polisi wa kawaida kutoka Parklands na kwingine hapo wamerespond, wao na pia wako na command tofauti. KDF na wao wamewasili, wako na command tofauti. Pia GSU wako pale, wako na command tofauti. Hiyo confusion nadhani ilitugharimu pakubwa sana. Kwa hivyo tukio lile lilikuwa mismanaged. Response ilikuwa mismanaged. Lakini ukitazama kufikia leo hii tumepiga hatua kubwa sana kama taifa katika kupambana na matukio haya ya ugaidi. Mara mengi ukitazama hata juzi uliona kulikuwa na uwezekano wa tukio hapa Mombasa na ikawa intelligence imepatikana in good time na response ikawa mzuri, wakaweza kuzimwa.
Mwaka wa 2000 in 2020, 7 years after the attack that left the world in shock, the court sentenced 2 suspects, Mohammed Ahmed Abdi and Hussein Hassan Mustafa, who were accused of planning and aiding a terrorist group responsible for the attack at the mall. The Westgate terrorist attack, the first of its kind in Kenya, compelled the government to strengthen its capacity to investigate and prosecute terrorists in line with international human rights obligations. Edwin John Mokora, Look Up TV.
Chief Justice Martha Koome has maintained the Constituency Development Fund, CDF, is illegal while addressing the senators through a recorded video during their second-day induction retreat in Nakuru. Koome added that the Supreme Court is committed to protecting and defending the devolution and the gains made through a devolved system. Shadrach Araria with that story.
The senators ate day 2 of their induction retreat in Naivasha, Nakuru County.
In all our committees, is there a way JLAC can then try to consult with the judiciary so that we don't continue wasting public funds?
Chief Justice Martha Koome, through a recorded video, called on the senators to play an authoritative role of overseeing and protecting the constitution mandate, the CJ stating that the Supreme Court is committed to defend the devolution.
In the court's protective capacity, honorable members, courts serve to defend fundamental elements of the constitutional order from being altered or destroyed. In such contexts, such as ours, with a history of authoritarian rule.
Koome used the platform to reiterate that the Constituency Development Fund, CDF, is illegal as it interferes with the devolved function of the counties in executing their roles.
It is unconstitutional to allocate funds to the CDF before the division of revenue between the national and county governments. In addition, it was the position of the Supreme Court that the CDF offends the division of functions between the national and county governments to allow a CDF an instrumentality of the national government to undertake functions devolved to the counties. This clearly underscored the separation of power and that delivery of service is devolved to the county.
Koome stated that the courts have been the foremost defender of the devolution, noting that when the devolution was threatened, the court stepped in to defend.
Therefore, I've been at the foremost to defend the devolution. In every instance where devolution has been threatened, the courts have listened to the calling, and specifically the Supreme Court has stepped in to defend the spirit of the devolution. On the 15th May 2020, the Supreme Court rendered an advisory opinion on how the recurrent failure between the Senate and the National Assembly to agree on the division of revenue bill would be resolved.
Shadrack Kareria, Look Up TV.
And I know
Muslim preachers have cautioned the Salaries Remuneration Commission against increasing salaries for members of the National Assembly and the Senate. The leaders are calling on the government to be mindful of the prevailing and tough economic times. This and more on our local roundup.
He is said to have arrived at the workstation, started off his work, but unfortunately ran out of oxygen and fell into the well, dying instantly.
Nimetoka tu town kushuka hivi, akakuja na ndugu yangu mkubwa kuniambia twende huko shamba, kuna kitu fulani nataka tuone huko. Nilikuwa kuwauliza nini inaendelea. Kanabali twende kwanza tu tutaonea huko tuone nini kuna kitu ya kunisaidia kwenda kutusaidia huko. Fika nikaona shimo, nikajua sasa anafanya kazi ya maji. Sasa nikajua basi sasa hiyo kama ni maji. Sasa nikajua basi hakuna.
Firefighters from Kakamega County who responded to the incident recovered his body and transferred it to Mumia's morgue as burial arrangement commenced. In other news, a section of market women popularly known as Mama Mboga from Kayole, Nairobi, have urged President William Ruto to consider bringing Hustler Fund to save the women and youth as soon as possible. Speaking while protesting against eviction of some traders from their premises, the women called on the government to consider protecting young business against exploitation and discrimination on alcohol drinks.
Your Excellency, kindly, wherever you are, try to control the economy of Kenya. Wherever you are, try to control the economy of Kenya. Because even us, for now, hata tumeshindwa kukulisha watoto kwa poma. Kuna zile funds alikuwa anasema sawa mama mboga. Na sisi atufungulia account kama wa mama mboga. Ili tupata hata mtu atapata loan ya shilingi 20,000 anafanyia biashara. Sababu saa hii hakuna mtu ataweza kupea hata 10 bob.
And bar and restaurant owners from Murang'a have expressed their fear on the proposed increase of excess duty on alcohol drinks. The entrepreneurs have stated that an increase on alcoholic products by 6.3% will force most of them to shut down their businesses.
We really request the government to go with the plan of increasing the beer prices by 6.3%. Kwa sababu to add that percentage, it means our customers will really not be able to consume the Kenya Breweries beer, which is actually we would say is the beer which is known. People who pay taxes from the Kenya Breweries do pay taxes.
They are now calling on the government to spare them losses and find other ways to raise revenue.
Just a week after President William Ruto and his deputy Rigathi Gachagua were sworn into office, questions on who would constitute their cabinet have been the center of conversations. On our daily segment of Your Opinion Matters, Mudheu Ndalana went out to engage Nairobi residents on what they think of that cabinet. Let's take a look.
As we anticipate the onset of a new administration, today on Your Opinion Matters, Kenyans give us their preferred candidates to the President Ruto's led cabinet.
Nilikuwa napendekeza kama Ruto anaweza, kama vile ni president, anaweza pia kama Munya kazi ama Magoha. Hao wawili ndio wamefanya kazi mzuri.
Ningependelea kwamba Fred Matiang'i retain post yake kama waziri wa internal security, alafu CS Magoha waziri wa elimu pia retain post wake.
Ile kitu naweza nataka kuambia President Mr. Ruto, unaona ministry ya education anaweza tupea tu mtu anaitwa Magoha.
So Magoha alikuwa sawa. Upande wa security Fred Matiang'i alikuwa sawa juu compare na saa hii. At least hizo maneno za Al-Shabaab zimereduce. Unajua kitambo zilikuwa zimekuja zikiwa mingi.
Wakati mheshimiwa Rais Ruto atakuwa na fomu hiyo cabinet secretary,
Naweza muomba tu arudishe CS Magoha. Kazi yake tumeiona kwa upande wa education.
Sisi tunataka tupewe msali hiyo.
Serikali, unajua sasa ukiangalia mtu kama ukiangalia kuna watu wamesoma, hata mtu kama Kalonzo anafaa kupatiwa siti. Jio knowledge yote tunataka ipotelee chini. So mimi naona cabinet yenye iko si mbaya, but tujaribu kuinterchange.
Yes, mimi nikipendelea tu kwa mambo na education, mimi nimempendelea tu Magoha maybe arudishwe. Sio mbaya.
CS kama Magoha si mbaya, sababu ukiangalia kwa hiyo docket yeye already sasa hizi nikichukulia CBC as an example. Sumono already hao watu mpaka wameshaweka infrastructure.
Wale wengine ambao nimeangalia kazi yao Magoha ni walifanya kazi nzuri, lakini sasa sio naona anaweza fit.
Government naweza penda retain mtu kama Matiang'i. Amina kwa sports and Amina vitu mob zimefanyika by the way.
Lakini Ministry ya Transport, mimi nafanya na sekta ya matatu. Naweza taka Ministry ya matatu atupatie mtu anaitwa Moses Kuria ama atupatie mtu anaitwa Sonko.
Those are just but a few candidates that the people of Kenya are hopeful to see in the new cabinet. Mudeundalana, Look Up TV.
Now, Football Kenya Federation President Nick Mwendwa will take plea Monday at Kiambu Law Courts after the High Court declined to bar the Director of Public Prosecutions from charging him afresh. Mwendwa had been charged over conspiracy to defraud FKF over 38 million shillings. Now, Mwendwa has been attempting to clear his name after he was arrested on several occasions and charged with fraud after Sports Cabinet Secretary Amina Mohammed disbanded the Federation on November 11th last year. Still on sports, Mombasa iconic golf course under UNESCO list is undergoing major refurbishment in order to attract both local and international golfers and also boost sport tourism in the coast region. Now, the golf course is located along the coastal line overlooking the Kilindini Channel connecting the port of Mombasa. The 111-year-old golf course offers scenic views to golf lovers.
Ya irrigation ya hii imezungumziwa miaka mingi, zaidi ya miaka 20, 50, lakini kwa wakati bodi yangu ilichukua kupata nafasi na tukasikizana na members wote tukasema it is now time for action.
The total cost of the project we expect to be in the region of 20 to 25 million. Currently we've done the first phase which involved the laying of pipes and the digging the trenches and having the sprinklers. You can see them, they're spraying. So the current phase cost us in the region of 10 million and it is done.
Of total irrigation systems and machinery in this region. So we've had the pleasure of partnering with Mombasa Golf Club in order to have the irrigation done since the inception of this club 116 years ago. So this is a great moment for this club.
Let's go into that story again for sports, still in sports, by the way. Now, and this one is on UEFA Nations League. Now, Scottish head coach Steve Clarke challenged his players to regain their momentum after they stalled in the summer as Scotland hosted Ukraine in the UEFA Nations League. Now, Scotland sit second in Group B, a point behind Ukraine after pre-zero loss away to the Republic of Ireland, sandwiched between a home and away wins over Armenia and the tail end of last season. By the way, let me give you an update of that group then, it means Scotland now on top of that group, because then they went in and sort of heeded to that message from their coach. Here's the thing, they won 3-0. Ukraine never scored. So if we look at how it went, then you will see that Mark Jean scored in the 70th minute, and then we did have Dykes, who came in and scored a brace, that is on the 80th minute and the 87th minute. Means if you look at how the game went, then you will see that majorly Scotland really possessed that game against Ukraine, and then that means that they top that group now. That's exactly how that particular game ended yesterday, and that really does mark then the end of the news desk this morning. I've been getting a lot of questions on how the likes of Gabriel Jesus, Martinelli, and guys from the Arsenal squad are not in contention for playing this UEFA Nations League. That's what it is. It is UEFA Nations. So big players are not supposed to participate in it. That's why majority of Arsenal players are not in it. But trust me, when it comes to World Cup, you'll be seeing the likes of Martinelli, Gabriel Jesus, and all of them from Arsenal in the World Cup. That's how it is. All right, we take a short break here on the Morning Drift. Once we come back, Ankey Dorice will get into that conversation on drugs. By the way, remember, conversations on drugs will never get old in any economy, in any society. So get your pens and papers out, take those notes. You could be helping somebody. And then again, I'll be joining you from 11 to 12 as we ask the question, should NSSF deductions from your paycheck be 2,000 shillings? Already your president is telling you 200, not enough. You need to contribute more if indeed we're going to be a saving nation. I'll see you then.
Hi there, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're watching us from. My name is Maki Wambogo, Sales Manager of Real Estate, and I'm here at our head office, Absa Towers, located at Reuters Street. Today, I'm here to talk about our newest project, that is Great Oasis Gardens, Nanyuki, and it is located only 10 minutes drive from Cedar Mall. And in this project, we have proposed that we will be having a GMC Entertainment Center. This will be a replica of what we have in Kitengela, GMC Kitengela. We are also proposing a police post, so you are assured that security, once you invest here, security is good.